Hello, I am Jeremy, and today I'm going to be taking a look at a game by the name of Second Chance. This is a 2019 game. It's put out by, I have a French version, put out by Act In Games. It's designed by Uwe Rosenberg. It plays for between 1 and 6 players in about 10 minutes or so. It's a very quick game. Box says ages 8 and up. Certainly an 8-year-old would be able to handle this. It's a very simple game where players are going to be trying to complete a grid using Tetris-type pieces, not specifically those shapes, but the same general idea. Uwe Rosenberg has had a lot of games in the last few years, such as Patchwork, Spring Garden, several others, to some degree, even like a Feast for Odin, that have used this mechanism. This is probably, or definitely, the simplest of those. I'll show you how the game works, and then what I'll do is I'll come back and let you know what I think about the game. So Second Chance is a very simple game. Each player is going to get one of these score pads. There's quite a few of them. They're double-sided that you're going to get with the game. And I should note that the game also does come with a expansion for the game Cottage Garden. I haven't tried this yet, but it's the Easter Bunny expansion for the Cottage Garden game. Also by Uwe Rosenberg, comes in the same box. So what you're going to do to set up the game is you'll take these 2 stacks of cards and separate them by the backs. This is just a starting card, then these are the ones you'll actually use to play. And you'll set out these cards here, which will show you the various shapes that are available on these cards. At the start of the game, like I said, each player is going to get a score sheet. And this is just a grid. There's just one dot in the center of it. I've actually laminated some, so I'll use that. And each player will get a distinct one card from this deck. So they'll get a card here. So if I was playing, I would get this one, and I have to place this shape on my grid. So this means every player is going to have a different starting position. So just for this one shape, the starting one that's unique to you, you have to touch the center dot on your grid with at least one square, or with exactly one square from that. So all you'll do is draw that on your board. So maybe I would just do something like that. So we have a 3 and then 2 nubs on the end. And what I would suggest doing is filling in these in some manner so that you could tell that it's actually a shape. Because as you put multiple shapes on here, it'll be difficult to tell over the course of the game what is and isn't filled in if you don't do something like that. So then, from then on, the round structure is that you'll draw 2 cards from this deck, and each player has to fill either one of these onto their score sheet. So the way that works is, the only rule is that you cannot overlap what you've already drawn, you can't redraw what you have, and you can't go off to the side outside of the grid. But you do not have to build adjacent to what you already have. You have the option to do that, but again, no requirement. So maybe I would take this one here and draw it in here. And every player would do this, and then 2 more cards would come up. So what you could do is kind of keep track of what's coming up by looking at these over the course of the game. So maybe I would choose this stack of 4, or this L line, and put some dots in there just to indicate that I did that. And then I have to pick one of these. So this is just going to keep going until it happens that one of the players, or more of the players at the table, can't fill in either of these shapes. So this is going to happen generally near the end of the game. So if you cannot fill one of these 2 shapes, what you'll do is you'll draw one of these cards. Each individual player will draw one of these cards of their own, flip it over. If they can fit that shape into their grid, then they will be able to continue playing. They have to draw that one in. But if they couldn't fit either of these 2 in, and it's mandatory to fit one of these 2 in if possible, and could not fit this one in, they're going to get eliminated from the game. The other players will continue to play until they get eliminated, or until they complete their entire grid. The first person to eliminate gets to basically mark off one of these and put a 1 in it. That will be an extra, it's basically a catch-up mechanism for that player. That will count as a filled square for them at the end of the game. It also serves as a tiebreaker, so if the person who gets eliminated first wins in a tie, or will win in a tie. But just to show you how this plays out, I'll show you my terrible plotting skills. So let's see, we have this one here. Maybe I would take that and fill it in here. So again, no thought is going into this process. So maybe I just do that to indicate that that's filled. Then I get one of these 2. This one works pretty well there. No, that's not great. That would be 2 singles. So what you generally want to do as you're playing this game is avoid creating spots that have the single dots or spots that are maybe too big. So you can see this card here that shows the card distribution. There are only 3 single dots in the entire deck, and one of those has already come out. And it's possible that you won't get access to it because it might get flipped up when a player's taking their second chance, which is obviously where the game gets its name. But what you'll keep doing is flipping cards and placing these in here. So maybe I do this one here. I'll just play quickly for the sake of it. So, oh, that worked out perfectly. I could fill this one in like that. I have to take one of these two. So there is also in this game a solo variant, and the solo variant just has you play 3 consecutive games, and then across those 3 games, your score should be 10 or less in order to win. Maybe I'll just do that. So here's an example of what I was talking about before. If you weren't putting some sort of marks within the shapes that you're drawing, it would be difficult to tell if that was actually filled in or not, that one single square there. Oops. Let's just say we do that. So it's this ungainly shape over here. And the manual suggests if you want to get really creative and have a really pretty playboard, playing with colored pencils, with each player getting a different colored pencil, then swapping them each turn, so you're filling in shapes of different colors, you'll have a prettier display at the end. I guess that's a nice thought. I haven't done that myself, but it does suggest that in the manual. Maybe we'll just do in these, which is really setting me up for failure there, but I just want to move on with the demonstration. I can fill in that one here, so now I could put an X in there just so I know that's done. And that one I can't do, that one I can't do. Yeah, so that won't fit here, even if I would rotate it. And so these shapes, you can freely rotate them, mirror them, whatever you want to do in that regard. I don't think I mentioned that. So I can't place any of these two, so now I would essentially flip this one up, which I also can't place, so now I'd be eliminated out of the game. Again, if I was the first player, I'd get to mark off one of my things and put a 1 in it, and then my score would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So my score would be 21. So that would be a pretty terrible score, but I just wanted to, play badly so I could show you how the game would play. After each player has been eliminated, whoever has the fewest unfilled in spots is going to be the winner. Again, the tiebreaker going to the person who got eliminated first. And that is pretty much how you're going to be playing Spring Garden, or Second Chance, wrong game. Again, if you were playing solo mode, you would do 3 rounds, and your total score, in order to win the game, would want to be 10 or less. And that is basically how you play the game solo. So that is Second Chance. Alright, so that is Second Chance, and as you can see, it's about as simple as a game with this theme could be. There's very few restrictions as you're playing about what you could do. You could pretty much put any shape anywhere, so it's very much an individual player puzzle that's going to be solved, and it's just at the end of the 10 minutes or so where players are working on that puzzle, you'll see who did the best, and I think that for what this is, it's a perfectly acceptable game. I think there are games that, also games designed by Uwe Rosenberg that do a better job of feeling more like a gamer's game than this, but this is definitely the simplest, quickest one that he's published yet. Who knows, he might get even simpler. One good thing about it is that it plays from the box says from 1 to 6 players. You could theoretically play with more players, but the problem would be that the card deck would run out quicker, which is a consideration. Because when a player gets their second chance, they're going to take a card out of that 40-card deck where players are drawing. That 40-card deck is the game timer. I'm not sure if I mentioned in my rules explanation, but if that deck runs out, all players just score what's left over. So although your tendency in these games is going to be to just take the smallest piece so you have more space for future pieces, because of that timer element, which is unknowable because of you don't know exactly how many players are going to get those second chance cards over the course of the game, you're encouraged to take the bigger pieces and the more ungainly pieces and try to fit those into your grid. So there is a very slight strategic element in the game, which is nice, and again, it's a 10-minute game. You don't need it to be deeply strategic. And I think for what it is, it's very pleasant. It works very well. Some things that I'll mention, it's nice that it comes with a Cottage Garden expansion. I didn't get a chance to play that yet, but I do own Cottage Garden, and I will get that to the table. it's nice that it comes with a score sheet. I did laminate those though, but they are two-sided, which is always good to see in a game that uses a score sheet like this. One thing that I will note is that these little cards that come out, this is a 6-player game. You only get one set of those. They show you the card distribution in the deck that's going to be drawn over the course of the game. And it's not especially handy to have one set of these shared among all players. What I actually did, a user on Board Game Geek created a card that showed that. I printed those out and laminated that as well. So if players want to, they could track and mark off these as they come out. Because you do want to keep track of how many, especially these, little 1 dots and the two segment pieces are left in the game. So I would recommend spending the extra $1, or whatever, to print some of these out and include those with your game. This is already a pretty inexpensive game, a small box game, and a very quick game. So, just making that a little bit more user-friendly would be nice. It would have been nicer, of course, if those things came in the box. But all in all, this game is very much, what it appears to be. That's not a knock against it. It's not trying to, set the world on fire, but as a pleasant little diversion for players, as a filler game, or even a game that you could play with people who have not much experience at all with games, this would be a really good choice. It's not the most captivating one of these in the series. I like Patchwork, but that only plays for 2. I do like Spring Meadow, the last in his trilogy of tile laying games, Uwe Rosenberg's trilogy. That one I think is a nice, very light game as well, but it has that nice tactile nature. I do prefer, laying down tiles to drawing. That's just a personal preference. But that game probably takes about twice as long as this. So for a 10-minute game, you could do a lot worse than Second Chance. Thanks for watching.